It started over something so stupid, I can't even remember what it was now. But I remember the silence that came after. It was a cold, heavy blanket that smothered everything, and in that silence, I heard the sound of our relationship cracking right down the middle. My partner, Sarah, just looked at me, her eyes tired. "You just don't get it," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You never even try to see it from my side." And then she just walked away, leaving me standing there with my useless arguments and my correct point of view. I realized the enemy in our relationship wasn't her, and it wasn't our disagreements. It was something inside me I started calling the armor of being right. It was this rigid, defensive posture I took in every conversation, so focused on winning that I never stopped to simply listen. The cost of wearing that armor was devastating. I was living with my favorite person in the world, yet I felt completely and utterly alone. Our home, once a sanctuary, now felt like a minefield where any conversation could explode. It wasn't one big event that was destroying us. It was 1,000 tiny paper cuts of misunderstanding. Every question felt loaded. Every story she told was something I felt I had to fix or have an opinion on instead of just hearing it. She would tell me about a hard day at work, and my brain would immediately jump to solutions. "You should do this," or "Why don't you just tell them that?" I thought I was being helpful, but I was completely missing the point. She didn't want a consultant, she wanted a partner. I'd find myself thinking about how we used to be. We could talk for hours about nothing and everything. Now, a simple "How was your day?" felt like a formal interview full of guarded answers and a palpable distance. I was exhausted. Being right all the time, being prepared to defend my position at a moment's notice, it was draining the life out of me. My armor was supposed to protect me, but it was just isolating me from the one person I wanted to be close to. I started to notice Sarah pulling away even more. She stopped telling me about her struggles at work or the funny thing that happened on her commute. She was learning that sharing with me often led to a debate, not comfort, so she just stopped. The worst part was dinner. We'd sit at the same table, eating the same food, and the silence was deafening. We were two ghosts haunting a life we had built together, and I had no idea how to bring it back. As I started to really look at myself, I saw this pattern everywhere. I'd cut off friends mid-story to give my opinion. I'd turn simple discussions with my family into debates. My need to be right was poisoning every connection I had. My world had become transactional. It was all about information exchange, not emotional connection. The rich, vibrant color that real human connection brings to life had faded to a dull, lonely gray. I had to ask myself the hard question, why did I need this armor so badly? The answer was terrifying. Underneath it all, I was afraid. Afraid of being wrong, of looking stupid, and most of all, of being truly seen. One evening, Sarah was on the phone with her sister, and I heard her laugh. It was a deep, joyful sound that I realized I hadn't heard directed at me in months. It was like a punch to the gut. I wasn't just losing arguments, I was losing her joy. After she hung up, I looked at my reflection in the dark living room window. I didn't see a winner. I saw a tired, lonely man who was systematically pushing away the love of his life. In my quest to always be right, I was about to lose everything. The weight of all our recent arguments crashed down on me. I replayed every time I had cut her off, every time I had dismissed her feelings with a logical solution. I felt like a complete failure as a partner. A cold dread washed over me. What if it was too late? What if the wall between us was too high to climb, the damage too deep to repair? The thought that I might have permanently broken us was unbearable. That night, I couldn't sleep. I found myself on my laptop at 2 a.m. typing desperate phrases into the search bar. How to stop arguing, how to listen to your partner, how to show empathy. I was looking for a lifeline, anything to pull us back from the brink. I clicked on an article about communication, and one phrase jumped off the screen. It was so simple, yet it hit me with the force of a revelation. It was the key I had been searching for, the core insight that would change everything. The phrase was, "Listen to understand, not to reply." I read it again and again. My entire life, every conversation, I had been listening for my opening. I was listening for the flaw in the argument, the pause where I could jump in. I had never just listened to understand. It was a paradigm shift. Empathy wasn't some magical emotion you either had or didn't. It was a conscious choice. It was the decision to take off the armor, put down the conversational weapons, and just be present for another person. I knew a big "I'm sorry" speech wouldn't fix this. Words were cheap, I had proven that. This had to be about action. My plan was simple. In my very next conversation with Sarah, I would shut up and just try to understand. The next evening, Sarah came home from work looking completely drained. She sighed and said, "My boss is being impossible." My old self immediately wanted to jump in with a dozen solutions. But this time, I literally bit my tongue and just stayed quiet, waiting. She looked at me, probably expecting an argument or a lecture. Instead, I just nodded slowly. I didn't say a word. It was the most uncomfortable 5 seconds of my life, but it worked. The silence created a space, and she filled it. She started to explain the whole situation with her boss. The unfair deadlines, the passive-aggressive emails, the feeling of being undervalued. It all came pouring out, and for the first time in years, I didn't interrupt once. When she finally paused, my mind was racing with solutions, but I pushed them all away. I looked at her and asked the simplest question, "Wow, how did that make you feel?" She blinked, genuinely surprised by the question. A tiny shift happened in her posture. I felt really frustrated, she said, and invisible. It was the first time she had named an emotion to me in what felt like forever. This was the crucial moment. Instead of offering a fix, I used another tool I'd read about, validation. I just said, "That sounds incredibly frustrating." I wasn't agreeing or disagreeing, I was just acknowledging that her feeling was real. She gave me a small, weary smile. "Yeah, it is," she said. And then the words that felt like a ray of sunshine breaking through a storm cloud. "Thanks for listening." It wasn't a solution, it wasn't a hug, but it was a connection. It was a start. That small victory fueled me. I realized empathy was like a muscle that had atrophied from disuse. I decided to start going to the empathy gym every day, treating every small interaction as a chance to practice this new skill. My first new rule was simple. When she was talking to me, my phone went away. Not just in my pocket, but face down on the counter. It was a physical signal to her, and to myself, that this conversation was the most important thing happening right now. I started using clarifying questions. Instead of assuming I knew what she meant, I'd say things like, "So it sounds like you felt disrespected when he said that. Is that right?" It showed I was trying to get it right, not just be right. I started listening for the feelings, not just the facts. I'd try to gently name them. "Wow, that sounds really stressful," or "You seem so proud of that accomplishment." It showed I was hearing her heart, not just her words. Of course, I wasn't perfect. There were times my old habits flared up. I'd interrupt with a brilliant solution or get defensive. The difference was, now I could feel it happening. I could feel the armor starting to slide on. When I slipped up, I learned a new move. The quick, honest apology. "You know what, I'm sorry, I just cut you off." That's my old habit. "Please, go on." It was humbling, but it showed her I was serious about changing. Slowly, I saw a change in her. She was less guarded. She started sharing the little things again, the funny observations, the minor frustrations. It felt like she was cautiously testing the water, seeing if it was safe to be vulnerable with me again. Then came the real test. A genuine disagreement about weekend plans we both had strong feelings about. I could feel the familiar heat rising in my chest, the urge to put on the armor and fight for my side. But this time, I took a breath. I made a conscious choice. Before I stated my case, I looked at her and said, "Okay, before I say what I think, help me understand why this is so important to you." It felt like laying down my sword. And she told me. I listened, I validated her feelings. Then, and only then, did I calmly explain my perspective. It wasn't a battle anymore, it was a collaboration. We weren't opponents, we were partners trying to solve a puzzle together. Because we had both felt heard, we found a compromise that neither of us had thought of before. We solved the problem, and instead of feeling drained and resentful, we felt closer. We had navigated a conflict and came out stronger on the other side. That moment became our new normal. Listening to understand wasn't just a technique I used when I was in trouble. It became the foundation of our communication. The small moments of connection started adding up, building something strong and resilient. The biggest change was the sound of our home. Laughter came back. We started teasing each other again, sharing stupid memes, and developing the kind of inside jokes that only exist between two people who truly get each other. Her full, joyous laugh was no longer a rare event. An unexpected side effect was learning to have empathy for myself. I started to understand the fear that made me build the armor in the first place. I learned that it was okay to be wrong, to be vulnerable, and to not have a solution for everything. This change rippled out into every corner of my life. My friends started opening up to me more. My colleagues began seeing me as a collaborator, not a competitor. Even tense family dinners became more peaceful because I was no longer there to win. My entire mindset shifted from certainty to curiosity. I started to see every person as having a rich, internal world that I knew nothing about. My job wasn't to judge it or fix it, but to be curious about it. I finally understood what Sarah had been trying to tell me for years. She didn't need me to slay her dragons for her. She just needed me to see that she was in a fight, to acknowledge her struggle, and to sit with her in it for a moment. The intimacy we developed was deeper than anything we'd had before. It wasn't just physical closeness. It was the intimacy of knowing that the person beside you truly sees you and accepts you. It was the safety of knowing you can be fully yourself. Our connection is now built on these small, daily acts of empathy. Asking about her day and actually listening to the answer. Being able to sit in comfortable silence. The power of simply saying, "I hear you," and having it be the absolute truth. The language in our home changed. It was no longer your problem or my issue. Everything became our puzzle to figure out. We were a team in the truest sense of the word. We're no longer afraid to talk about feelings. I've learned that emotions aren't messy complications, they are vital information. Understanding how we both feel about a situation is the fastest way to a solution that works for both of us. When I think back, I remember the constant tension. The feeling of walking on eggshells, carefully weighing every word for fear of setting off a bomb. Our connection felt like a thin sheet of ice, ready to crack at any moment. Now our connection feels like solid ground. We can be honest, even when it's difficult, because we have a shared trust that we will listen with empathy. That security is a gift I never knew I was missing. Before, I saw her struggles as a reflection on me. I had to fix them to prove my worth as a partner. It was an incredibly arrogant way to approach her pain, making it all about me and my abilities. Now I see my role differently. I'm not the fixer, I'm the witness. My job is to sit with her in her feelings, to offer my presence and support, and to trust in her own strength to navigate her life. It's a much more loving and respectful role to play. A quiet evening now feels completely different. We can be in the same room, doing our own things, and the silence isn't a void, it's a shared space. It's the peaceful quiet of two people who are so connected they don't need to fill every moment with noise. That old, heavy armor is gone. I don't even know where I'd find it if I looked. I've learned that true strength isn't in being impenetrable, it's in being vulnerable and open. It's a lightness of being I never knew was possible. Looking back, I see that even in her withdrawal, Sarah was teaching me. Her silence wasn't a punishment, it was a desperate signal of what she needed. I just had to stop shouting my own opinions long enough to finally hear it. The ultimate reward in all of this is healthy communication. It's the superpower that lets us handle anything life throws at us. We can have disagreements, face challenges, and talk about hard things without fear of breaking the connection. Our life together has transformed from chaos to calm. The constant, low-level stress is gone, replaced by a deep sense of peace. Our relationship is no longer something I have to manage. It's the place I go to recharge. I learned that love isn't just a grand, sweeping emotion. It's a series of small, conscious choices you make every single day. It's the choice to put your phone down, to ask a question, and to truly, deeply listen. Living in this new reality feels like breathing fresh air after being trapped in a stuffy room. I wake up feeling light, looking forward to talking with her. I feel like I have my best friend back, and I know she feels the same way. Even physical touch feels different now. When I put a hand on her shoulder while she's talking, it's not just a gesture. It's backed by the weight of real listening and understanding. It means I'm here with you. There is an incredible freedom in not needing to have an answer for everything. I can just be a curious observer in someone else's life. It has made every interaction, with everyone, so much richer and less stressful. Now, when we talk about the future, it's exciting, not scary. We know we have the tools to navigate whatever comes our way. We're building our life on a foundation of rock, not sand. If I could talk to my old self, the one standing in that silent living room, I would tell him this: that armor you're so proud of, it's a cage. Drop it. The prize for being right is loneliness. The prize for listening is everything. I truly believe that empathy is the closest thing we have to a superpower. And the best part is, it's not something you're born with. It's a skill you can learn, a muscle you can build, starting with your very next conversation. You don't have to solve your entire relationship overnight. Just start with one thing. In your next conversation, just try to validate one feeling. Just try to listen for 10 seconds longer than you normally would. That's it. That's the start. Every single interaction is a choice. You can choose to defend your own position, or you can choose to try and understand someone else's. You can choose your armor, or you can choose connection. You can't have both. Giving someone the gift of being truly heard is one of the most powerful acts of love there is. It communicates that they matter, that their inner world is important, and it costs nothing but your willingness to be present. Our story isn't over. A relationship is a living thing that needs constant tending. But now, we have the tools, the skills, and a shared commitment to do the work. And it doesn't feel like work anymore, it feels like love.